Space, the final frontier. Space Station Ashland sits on the edge of Federation space with its companion ship, the USS Dalamis Christian. The space around them is full of mystery and strange wonders, where secrets are kept and danger lurks around every corner. The crew of the Dalamis Christian must navigate treacherous waters as they work to protect the Federation. But as they peer into the unknown, they will discover that the line between friend and foe is not always clear. They will be tested like never before and will face challenges that will push them to their limits. Join us on this adventure as we explore the farthest reaches of space and uncover the hidden truths that lie within the shadows. Tabletop Journeys presents Star Trek Preservations.
Welcome, travelers. My name is Lee Wanika, and this is Tabletop Journeys. Tonight, we have come together to provide you with another fantastic actual play episode of Star Trek Preservations, Quick Treks. This time with the captain of our hero ship, the USS Dalamis Christian.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Harney, and I play Captain Sabian Tobor, the commanding officer of the USS Dalamis Christian, a Federation Saber-class starship.
Excellent. We would invite anybody who has not been with us for a long period of time or may have missed an episode or two to go back, listen to some of the previous few episodes, and then come right back to us.
Absolutely.
The name of this adventure is The Cost of Kindness. And I will open the scene as such. Captain Sabian Tobor and Lieutenant Dori are in a shuttle headed in a given direction when you hear the voiceover of Captain Sabian Tobor.
Captain's log, stardate 59601.1415. I've been ordered to travel via auxiliary craft to Valkyria to negotiate a patrol and observation easement with the colony's Orion-led leadership. Accompanying me is Lieutenant Zhal'ari Dori, who sees this as an ideal opportunity to study the colony's remarkable ecosystem and examine a set of newly discovered artifacts retrieved by the Federation science team stationed nearby. I anticipate this negotiation will test both my skills at diplomacy and patience.
Excellent. And as we have spent 3.5 years and several adventures talking about the very cool and unique auxiliary craft of the USS Dalamis Christian, given the parameters of this mission, I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to let you know that we are starting with 4 threat, 2 for you and 2 for Lieutenant Dori. And for the audience who's not terribly familiar with that character, that is an NPC who will be played by me today. That said, there's 4 threat to begin with, and you get to select one of the Dalamis Christian's auxiliary craft. Which would you like to take on this diplomatic mission?
All right, so I think looking at the various crafts going into Orion space, I think if nothing else, we're going to take the Tank Abbott. It's the one that does not have the advanced sensor suite, which would be, hate to come out and find my runabout up on cinder blocks with the sensor system taken. I know not all Orions are pirates. It's there for a reason. And as well as the Tank Abbott showing a somewhat kind of combat loadout that it's for patrol, and since that's what we're talking about, I think that's the best one for us to bring.
I would mention that the idea of you taking auxiliary craft was based on the fact that they didn't want to show an offensive posture, as they thought that some of that may not work politically well. They were suggesting to avoid bringing the Dalamas Christian, which is designed as a combat craft, for exactly that purpose. I don't know if that would change or alter your decision in any way. Not trying to. Your choice is your choice. You are going into an area where things can happen. Yeah, I will say this though, in addition, this area is unclaimed territory. It's not Orion space. It just happens to have an Orion in charge of a diverse multi-polity colony.
Sure. With the Tank Abbott being a runabout, if anyone asks, I'm going to be, oh no, this is our standard runabout loadout. We've got micro torpedoes, phaser banks. We learned the lessons from the Dominion War. So if I have to play it off, it's not particularly set up to be a fighter craft. It just, if it nudges you, you will notice.
Fair enough. As you completed your captain's log, Lieutenant Dory is reading up on some information, basically reading some of the papers from the mission, the scientific mission, so she's better prepared. And is there anything you would like to do in this moment?
Yeah, so one of the main reasons I brought Dorai along with this is I wanted to get her opinion on my chief science officer. And I'm going to very delicately ask her to talk about her boss,
Okay.
which from past interactions I've seen her and Neelon have, it's probably not going to be too terribly difficult to get her to do.
Oddly, she seems a bit reluctant.
I'll frame it in a way that goes back to the, I don't want to call it an incident, but the where Dorai led the science expedition to do the scouting on the subspace disturbance so we dropped them off and
Yeah,
they met back up with us before the Battle of Aslan Station and kind of how that she went straight to the XO and kind of a bit of a thing to do about it. I've never really gotten a chance to catch up with her on the results of the outcome of the science data and its usefulness to the Michael Collins. So I'll kind of start there.
she begins by saying the mission went well. We got good data. We got it encrypted, coded, and sent. We have acknowledgement that it was received. We have acknowledgement that they're nearing the aperture, and we'll be doing scans, and hopefully we'll hear back as to what they can do on their end to seal the rift. It worked. We did what we had to do.
And what's your analysis of their likelihood of success in sealing the aperture? You've seen the data as much as anyone.
So I know the data. I've been able to ascertain it is theoretically possible to seal this in space. Any opening, in theory, can be closed. The amount of power, the amount of available resources, those are really where the questions come. Unfortunately, not being on site, it wouldn't be scientifically accurate or good of me to conjecture. I would say the Luna class is a big ship designed for such missions, so
That she is.
I would think that they, as long as the resources are possible and or it's not too big yet, in theory, they should be able to come up with a way. I wouldn't know what that is.
You don't have your own personal thoughts, speculations, scribblings you've been doing late at night to run by your significant other on the Michael Collins?
So I recognize that I held back information that probably would have been pertinent to note earlier in those discussions. I recognize where I let my team down and you down, sir. So I apologize, but this is not specifically my area of expertise. I am an archaeologist and anthropologist. I have study in biology and botany, but what I am good at is thinking outside the box and collecting data. You put me on the best ship we have, auxiliary ship we have, to get the most amount of data. Quite honestly, I'm not the one who's crunching the numbers. I was collecting the raw data and getting it to them because we had access to a third parameter that they didn't, which can only make their abilities better. As far as I know, to close any kind of fissure in space of any type in any of the multitude of dimensions one could have, you need to find the opposite power source or the opposite thing. You need to power that more than the fissure or opening itself, and you need to apply it consistently to produce the desired result. I It's the specifics that I couldn't tell you. All I can tell you is I got them the data so they could determine how big it was, how big it was getting, in theory, how big it could get, and most importantly, some of the energy signature information and specificity to be able to make the other calculations.
That's very reasonable.
Thank you, sir.
So, Lieutenant, the
Yes, sir.
Dalamis Christian is a small vessel, so I'm sure you've come to be aware of it.
It's
And
comfortable.
I've spent a lot of time figuring out whom I wanted aboard my ship. And your name was on the top of the list. I've been watching your career for a while now, even before you came aboard my ship. I followed you or your, shall I say, exploits at the academy. And it came to my attention very quickly that you are indeed someone who is willing to think outside the box. I'm sure you're aware of how few Orions there are in Starfleet.
Yes.
And since Freeman got his hands on the other one, that left you available for this mission.
I would say this, sir. I don't have the clout at home as she does, but I work very hard.
Few would. But again, your interest in archaeology, your specialization in xenobiology, the fact that you put together that hollow matrix program that triggered that purple alert, notwithstanding, with some really good and innovative thinking. Because the threat we face is an ancient threat. Some sources are saying now 10,000 years they've been here in our galaxy. The Zunians, we're still working closely to try and interact and interface with them and study what happened in their distant past. Your insight into these creatures has been extremely valuable. And more importantly, your ability to see things as they are and not as others want them to be seen is one of the main reasons I chose you to be on this mission.
I started my studies initially because the older things in the beta quadrant are exceptionally valuable. Specifically, things related to the Herc, early colonization from species long gone, possession of old technologies or old lore can lead to other discoveries. Along the way, I determined that finding things to sell to whoever was the highest bidder wasn't enough for me. Finding something and handing it off wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to understand. I had a mentor in my freshman year at the academy who told me once that understanding the past is the best way to dictate the future. Over the years, specifically serving a couple of the missions, a couple of the captains I've served, and mostly you, I don't believe that was a very accurate statement. I prefer to think of it as understanding the past is the best way to plan for the future. That's how I choose to live. And
Indeed.
sometimes I get a bit ahead of myself and I'm a little overly focused and driven. And
Who hasn't?
you started this conversation with Lieutenant Neela. She was right, sir. If I had trusted her and given her the information, she would have argued on my behalf. I don't come from a colony or a family where I was easily able to give trust. And despite a few years here in Starfleet, that's a lesson I'm still working on learning. But I can say this. I absolutely believed the lieutenant when she said she would have argued for me if I had trusted her. We might have had that information earlier, sooner, or better. And what weighs on me is if it doesn't go well and it's a matter of timing, my lack of trust would be responsible.
Well, the one thing you'll come to learn, Lieutenant, is in this galaxy, we rarely, if ever, are afforded the luxury of making decisions with complete information. In my time, well, as in my symbiote's time in this universe, never once have we had the luxury of knowing all the variables that are possible. And we have to take the data we have and make the best decisions we can and correct for any errors that occur along the way. And determining when you have made an error is often, I have found, more important than making the right decision at the first go about. Because what truly allows us as scientists to be able to learn and grow and explore is be able to understand when we are wrong, when we are headed down the wrong path, and our ability to pivot. And I saw you do that with skill and a level of humbleness that I generally don't see in many junior officers.
We have a great crew, sir. And if I'm to quote the Markov or Gorkov, what good are we if we're not leveling up our ability to play the game?
Yes, Marv does have a very practical sense of things for a subspace theorist. It's quite odd, but
To be honest,
nonetheless.
he was saying it about a drinking game that he and several others were playing on station against one
Oh,
of the other ships. But,
that does make sense.
but, just one of those things that kind of works on a couple different levels.
Indeed. And so I have an assignment for you. to take it back to Lieutenant Nealon.
Yes, sir.
I'm a big fan of the lieutenant. Her astrophysics, virology, chemistry, second to none. But as I'm sure you've already become aware, she is what we would used to call a giant nerd. And so she's going to need as much help in understanding the real world that folks like you and Commander Chizilrer and Lieutenant Tanari all have experienced. I'm sure you're aware or have an inkling of it that almost none of the members of the Dalamis Christian grew up in a typical Federation utopia childhood. And that is not by random chance.
I think random chance is highly overrated, sir, but I also think you have probably not as much to worry about the lieutenant as you may think. Certainly not since you brought on the new security officer. Scuttlebutt is Lieutenant Fenev and Lieutenant Nealon go way back. I don't know the details because both of them are oddly keeping it very close to the vest.
Indeed.
Fenev asks a lot of questions about her.
What kind of questions?
What she been doing, what's she like, who does she hang out with, things like that. Basically, fairly consistently wants to know where she's at or what she's up to.
All right. Let me know if it gets odd at any point.
Sarah's odd with the first question.
Gets more odd then.
Fair enough.
But I think Narilla could use a little bit of your real world social skills, shall we say.
I don't know if it would, given our previous history, I don't know if that would work out well. But I'll do my best, sir.
Consider it a challenge. Think outside the box.
I will. Right at that moment, you get a beep, and it's a subspace communication from Starfleet Diplomatic Corps.
There you go. I'll take it on my screen.
Captain, the first part of the message is a written message. Essentially, it is an update on an ongoing situation that has been not extremely public, but a lot of people know about it. So it's not a secret at this point. Obviously, there's anticipation of the Hobus supernova at some point in the near future. And Starfleet is currently debating what they should do about it. Along those lines, this communication comes from the office of Admiral Picard, and it is an addendum to your current mission profile.
All right.
And then, so if you, after reading it, if you basically click the button or whatever,
Yep.
you will see on your screen Commander Rafaela Musker, Picard's chief of staff at this time in his career, and security person. Captain Tobor?
Oh, Commander. I thought this was a recorded message based on the press.
No, the beginning was recorded. I prefer to handle these things in person.
Excellent. The note from the Admiral said you had an addendum update to my Valkyria mission.
That is correct. You're headed to that colony, and we would like you to add an additional item to your negotiations. In
Okay.
addition to what you're already asking for, This planet has been listed as a possible relocation site for Romulan refugees. We are hoping to settle 20,000 refugees on the planet, but we would need the approval of the colonial leadership. This is non-Federation space, and what we are hoping to do is gain support within the Federation Council by assisting with resettling, but not necessarily settling everybody in Federation space. The idea being if we can find galactic partners, whether they be aligned or unaligned, as with this colony, we can help get the ball rolling, that the Federation is not taking all of the burden. It's important to note that Admiral Picard does not like the fact that we're not willing to take on all of the burden, but the politics of it apparently are, well, they're a pain in the ass, Captain. I think we just need to do whatever we can to help the Admiral.
Fair enough. I'm just surprised at the request with us being essentially out here near the Talarian Republic. That's a long way from Romulus. But I'm happy to put in the request on a scale of 1 to highest priority of the Federation Diplomatic Corps versus, hey, can you do us a solid? Like, where is this sitting?
I am piggybacking on the Diplomatic Corps' message, Captain. This comes from Admiral Picard's office. The Diplomatic Corps is asking because they were ordered to ask from Admiral Picard. We need a win. If we don't put together a few of these wins, we may not move the council to assist in helping the Romulan people. You are the first ship that we're asking, the first captain, because you happen to be going to one of the places that's on the short list for relocation.
Because I'm sure you're aware my current mission is to negotiate patrol routes and observation easements in this area. That is my primary mission, and I'm happy to bring up the Admiral's request to the colonial leadership, but the two other parameters has to take precedent.
I will say this. She hits a button and orders show up. By virtue of the office of Admiral Picard, signed by Admiral Picard, your orders have made this the primary goal. The other goals are now secondary. From a mechanical game sense, your bosses will be angry if you don't get their thing. But basically, Picard commandeered your orders, and his are the precedent.
Just to be on the same page between you, me, and Starfleet Intelligence that's listening in on this one. The Admiral wants me to prioritize his mission over that of Vice Admiral Tovek's, and through operation commands down to establishing these observation easements. If they're going to let us resettle refugees, they're going to let us have an easement, I imagine. But we really want to break this many eggs to make this omelet?
I say again, we need the win. These
I
dominoes don't
understand.
fall if the first one doesn't go. Captain, I think I need to be 100% honest with you. There's also a bit of a complication.
Oh, good to know.
A large portion of the 20,000 refugees are Remans.
And due to the unique ecosystem of this planet, it would be ideal for Riemann relocation.
Yes.
So you want me to ask an Orion if he would be willing to let 20,000 of the galaxy's most fearsome and feared reputable shock troopers, save for the Jem'Hadar, to like mosey on over and hang out in his on his world for an unknown amount of time for and what are we offering them in return? What is the Admiral willing to offer them in return? Thus being an Orion, no offense, Lieutenant, but
None taken.
culturally it would be appropriate to offer him something in trade.
Captain, you have your data on the colony. That is for you to decide. You come up with a deal. If it gets 20,000 Romulans and Remans on that planet, and it's anything other than giving away the farm, so to speak, Admiral Picard will make sure it gets signed off. Get us the win, and the road will be clear.
I'll hold you to that one, Commander. Anything else you want to throw my way? Couple new conspiracies or anything? You talked to my XO recently?
No, not terribly recently, but you let Ocean know if he needs something, especially if you get this done. You've got our backing. We'll help you out. We'll be
All
there
right,
for you.
because this Ebony Knox thing is starting to get worrisome out here. I know we're just out here on the edge of Federation space at Aslan, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing happening. It's got roots that need to be ripped out before it metastasizes.
Understood. Like I said, let him know if you need to talk to us. We'll see what we can do. I can't make promises. Our hands are really jammed up here. We've got a lot riding on that. You may be the first call, Captain, but you're not the only call.
I will do whatever it is in my power to assist the Admiral. Tobor out.
Excellent. It's been about a day's travel or 2 days travel. The earlier conversation took place day one. We're in day two. So you've had time to review the documentation that was there and prepare for the changes to your mission. Are there any questions, updates, roles, things you want to do to kind of improve your odds here?
Yeah, so essentially I want to do the reading, so as a narrative justification for using my talent in future scenes. I'm noticing that the primary population center, Rathmore, is about 42,000 residents. I want to dig deeper into the diplomatic files on the governor and
Okay.
who's the colony political structure and try and build a trait and have a better sense of what's going on.
Sure. I would say standard task here too. The known entity is that this is Governor Sarah, she, her, and
Perfect. So I think I want to use reason command and just studying and kind of diplomacy and protocol and xenoanthropology as my focus is to read between the lines in the diplomatic packet on what the colony is about. I know it's a lot of former Maquis and other type things. Sure, that means they're going to be not super keen on the Federation being around and all that type thing, but I just want to get that really firmly fixed in about all the advantages that having a Federation presence on the world brings with even an unaligned independent colony.
that makes sense.
And since I don't have any momentum yet, I'm going to spend a threat to add a third die to the roll.
That works for me. We're at
And
5 threat. Like I said, it's a standard 2 difficulty. So yeah, you are ready to go.
all right. 10, 4, and 13, so I've got 4 successes.
Nice. All right. 4 successes on a 2 gives you 2 momentum. And anything you'd like to give you the base information when checking in on the governor? Governor Nicira, she is an Orion. She is the leader of the planet. Your information indicates that she is stern, somewhat regarded as being somewhat empathetic, but she's built the colony into success. But what you also pick up is that she is Lieutenant Dori's cousin.
I like have the pad, and I'm all like, and when were you going to mention this, Lieutenant?
Mention what?
That your cousin is Governor Nicera?
At last count, I had 45 cousins. Is there a specific one you're talking about, sir?
Nicera?
What?
And I like pull up the like headshot profile on the pad data pad.
Dory looks a bit flabbergasted. And then she says, Sir, I honestly didn't know. Last I saw Nicira was when I left for the academy. At that point, she was,
It looks like the bugs and
quite
rocks are gonna have
honestly,
to wait.
still trying to organize rallies at the refugee colony.
Rallies. Like, what type of rallies?
Our family did not. Our family's not from Orion space, sir. Our family,
Don't tell me Cincinnati.
no. Who wants
Okay.
to be from Cincinnati? They throw turkeys out of shuttles there. My family,
As my witness,
as God
the
is my
turkeys
witness,
could
I
fly.
thought they could fly. I could not resist.
Yeah.
My family, about 5 generations back, fell out of favor with the syndicates. Our family had been sold a few times. And at some point, we were successful in winning our freedom. And we settled just in time to be at ground zero of the Federation Cardassian War. When the Federation sued for peace and everyone was asked to leave, ours was one of the colonies that chose to leave. And we have been in a refugee resettlement ever since. I'm the
Wait,
first.
I thought everyone who chose to come back was relocated and provided stable housing.
Sure. Those who came originally from other Federation locales and places, but we didn't. We had additional burdens and challenges. So we ended up with refugees, like many Bajorans. My cousin was a leader in trying to rally people towards getting better conditions. And
Maybe my task will not be impossible.
if your task includes getting her to trust the Federation, you've got 2 separate wolves that are at odds and of equal strength, sir.
Well, then let's feed the wolf that likes us.
I'll stick to the science, sir, and hopefully I won't complicate matters for you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lieutenant. The rocks and the bees are going to have to wait. We've got approximately 6 hours till we get to Valkyria, and you get to tell me everything I need to know about your cousin as an excuse to spend 2 momentum and get a new trait.
Excellent.
Inside
Two,
scoop.
I like that. I like that title. So the information you get about the cousin, like I said, stern, empathetic, does have a bit of difficulty trusting, and in specific, not on the absolute best terms with Lieutenant Dory. I wasn't pleased that Lieutenant Dory joined Starfleet. They don't have animosity specifically, but they're not best of friends either. And she says that the title Zhal'ari was given to me by my cousin. It's not actually a name, but Federation is weird about things like that, so they want to call it a name, but it's not really a name. It's a more of a title. In the etymological sense, it is an honorific, more accurately.
And I'm sorry, my Orion is rusty. What does that roughly translate into Federation standard?
It has a couple different meanings, but it translates to independent flame. The way she pronounces it, it probably more accurately is referred to as she who stands alone.
I see. Well, Starfleet's really good at strange reunions and all that stuff, so consider this a happy coincidence that you just so happen to get assigned to the mission on the one planet where you have family on.
Yeah, I'm just hoping I don't do something to cost us the mission. It sounds like this is an important one.
If your presence ruins the mission, then I'm not good at my job. So just be yourself and let's see if we can't get a couple birds with this stone.
Aye, sir.
So real quick, did we want to do that trait as a potent trait, or do we want to have two, like a diplomatic trait and like an insight on the governor trait? I don't know if mechanically it has much of a mechanical difference.
I don't think it has a mechanical difference. I was gonna just use it as a trait for both, actually.
Okay.
That's kind of how I was thinking about it.
Well, it's,
That
do you
works
want to
for
give
you?
me a +2 on my any of my rolls against the governor, or you want me to have a 1 and 1?
I was gonna say 1 and 1. That
Okay,
was where
so
I was
two
looking at
separate
it.
traits.
Yeah.
Inside scoop, and I'm gonna just say diplomatic briefing is my other trait.
Okay. You've created the trait. You've got some good intel. We have set the stakes, and you have spent all your momentum. So now we will end Act 1.
Just Grathmore, control this to the USS Tank Abbott, requesting permission to land.
Permission granted.
Bringing in on flight vector 444, Mark 282 to landing pad 23.
Pad is yours. As you land, you get that cool external shot. The dust kicks up just a little bit as you pull. It's a bit overcast and cloudy and whatnot, but as you land, you see that there's this honor guard set up, and they're all in uniforms. They're not crisp, they're not Starfleet uniforms, but they've got some kind of uniform color. Happens to be a olive green and black colored uniform. They don't have weapons or whatever, but they do all have a ceremonial scepter. I guess it could be used as a weapon if somebody really wanted to, but it's more of a ceremonial thing. So they seem to be rolling out the red carpet for Starfleet in this case. When you exit, are you going to be in Class A's? Are you going to be your standard uniform, or are you going to be in a formal diplomatic full dress uniform?
I'd be in standard uniform until and unless we're doing a state event.
Okay. Dory will obviously follow suit. The ship's left there in the care of the folks there. There's not real issues. The tank Abbott is secure.
Bloop.
Boop, boop. Everybody remember where we parked.
Yeah.
And as you go out, you're greeted by staff there, and they escort you into a station. Like this is not like the Capitol building. You're actually at like more of a public shuttle landing space, but you've got like personal transport that takes you to the headquarters of government.
I make some small talk with the, lead officer, the guard.
Is a human, and just he responds like nothing seems odd or off necessarily in the general conversation, unless you'd like to dig deeper. But in general, he responds. He talks about different things.
I mostly want to try and get an insight on like how is he doing like a Shax thing with a vein on his forehead, like Starfleet, I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah, at face value, no. But if you'd like to make an insight roll, your difficulty is going to be a 2.
Would you want to make this an opposed insight challenge then?
Let's do that. So it's going to be a 2.
All right.
But there are no additional complications.
Fantastic. And I'm going to do insight command.
Sure.
Excellent. So that's going to be 14. And I've got diplomacy as a focus.
Yep.
Hey, a 14 and a 7.
Excellent.
So 2 successes. So I
Right.
do succeed.
Best you can tell, he seems to be pretty pleased to be doing his job. Doesn't seem to have any animosity towards Starfleet. Certainly not towards you or the lieutenant in any way, shape, or form. Just seems to be just doing his job and happy to do it.
Okay. And yeah, because mostly I'm like, are they happy to see Starfleet? Are they angry and pleased to see Starfleet, or just eh?
It seems more like you are neither foe nor enemy to him or his people. That's probably the best way to describe it.
Okay, I
If
can
there are
work with
people
that.
who have issues with Starfleet, it's not the Guard
Or they weren't assigned to this guard mission. Fair.
yet. We get to see how much more threat I get before they get assigned.
Perfect.
As the GM strokes the threat chips that are at arm's reach.
Whoa.
Blah. You're in the office of the governor. When you walk in the office, lights are not dim but not bright, and they seem to look like candlelight, which is like sconces. So they're not, but they seem to have that reflecting, that kind of movement as though there were like flames and
Right.
torches on the walls.
And then from my planetary brief, this is a 3V red main sequence star. So it's got the Krypton like on everything bathed in blood, right? Look to it.
Yeah. Yeah, everything is kind of when it's high noon, it's like sailor take warning time. That red color kind of
Yeah.
permeates everything.
Okay. So it's got a lot of red infrared, so it's warm, but in a weird way. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
You see her office seems busy. Like desk has papers on it and things like that. And she, not papers, but desk has a bunch of pads on it. And she's got like a big board. And you can see that there's a logistics board where you're seeing basically shipments come and go. When you were flying in, you noticed there were a fair amount of transport vessels that were moving in and out. There is even one of Brazig's ships moving, picking up cargo here and the whole.
I'll make my introductions. Governor, I am Captain Sabian Tobor, the USS Delamis Christian, and my Assistant Chief Science Officer, Lieutenant Dori, whom I have been recently informed you are acquainted with.
More than Captain. You can call me Miss Sarah. Thank you. Governor's a bit more formal than I choose to be most days.
Then by all means, feel free to call me Sabian.
Sabian, have a seat. Can I interest you in a beverage?
I would love one. The replicator is so replicated this time of year.
Oh, I don't stand on replicator formalities. I prefer legitimate and actual beverages. I have a fully stocked bar. We have some of the best Andorian ale. Just came in on the cargo ship not too long ago.
Uh,
Well, earlier today,
I'm
in fact.
I am acquainted with the excellent fine wares that Damon Brazek has been bringing to this part of the quadrant, and I would be honored to share a drink with you.
Yes, you'd be amazed at what he's willing to provide at a reasonable rate.
And then what he's willing to provide at an unreasonable rate.
Well, I don't stroke just anybody's lobes, Captain.
Hmm.
That said, what brings you to our humble home?
Yeah,
She's pouring the drinks.
I've
She pours one for Dory, who waves her hand off. She doesn't want one.
I've been looking into, we've been searching this sector of space to find partners that could help us with a developing situation. We are, as I'm sure you have heard through the interstellar grapevine, that the Romulan home star of Hobus is experiencing a state of flux to the point that there is grave concern that it may go supernova in the not too distant future. It was part of our efforts to render aid and assistance to sentient residents that would be impacted. We are looking for communities who would be interested and available to accept some refugees from the impacted star systems. And have brushed up a bit on your background, I think this may be a wonderful opportunity that we can finally partner together and show those bureaucrats back on Earth how you actually handle a refugee crisis instead of just kicking the can down the road and hoping it's someone else's problem.
So Starfleet wants to finally own up to its responsibility to people and help folks find a safe haven. They couldn't do that 20 years ago.
There were, and I was not in Starfleet at that time, so I cannot speak for past administrations, but since the end of the Dominion War and the true devastation that has been wrought, the hearts and minds of a lot of Federation worlds have turned to humanitarian empathy and considerate compassion for their fellow sentient beings. All it took was a genocidal war against homicidal stormtroopers and genetically engineered super soldiers to get them to understand that helping thy neighbor is almost always the best course of action.
And yet they're not hosting them themselves.
We will be. A significant amount of individuals will need to be relocated, so we do not want any one community or star system to be overtaxed. Right now, the current plan in its very initial stages that we are building to take to the Federation Council is looking for, amongst other communities in the vastness of the Federation in the Alpha Quadrant, of about 20,000 refugees coming from what would be the former Romulan Empire. Of course, once that star goes nova, their empire will be no more.
So they say.
So they say.
Interesting, though. And she motions to what looks like a blank wall, and then it disappears. So basically, you can tell that it was basically transparent aluminum, but it had kind of like a hologram shutter on it. It opens up, and you can see the construction of a facility in the not so far distance. They're building another starport here, capable of landing even larger craft than shuttles and some of the container freighters. They're actually looking at being able to land starliners. Occasionally, there can be some stellar storms in the area. So, for ships of certain sizes that have the ability to land, it can be safer to provide that haven here. This project was started not too long ago, ratified by our councils and our committees. It was planned for by our architects, budgeted for by our accountants and bureaucrats, paid for on the backs of the labor of our people, funded on the food stores that we sell, that we have in excess for the population we have. It will be completed within the next 3 to 4 months.
Impressive.
With all of that planning and all the meticulousness, the resource overruns and budget overruns are almost 40% beyond the best initial plans. So,
One
Captain,
thing,
when you tell me you want to bring 20,000 from a culture the Federation has not trusted and rely on the largesse of the people that the Federation abandoned and would not give the same consideration to themselves, can you understand why I don't believe this number will ever stay at 20,000? Name one other colony, one other location that has agreed to this.
we are in the very initial steps of securing consideration from colonies and other communities. In fact, your name specifically was bumped to the top of the list because of your stellar experience and growth. The fact that your colony population is just shy of 100,000 individuals on a world that can support near Earth level inhabitants if it were to be fully mechanized and urbanized over the course of centuries. Right now, the number is based off of the colonial population. Of course, we would never ask you to absorb enough that would somehow completely override or overrun your base level of political, would just cause political instability. And the very fact that your primary exports come from agriculture, the populations being considered are probably very interested in no longer dealing with their former colonial overlords and wanting a life of peace and tranquil existence.
We're going to have to talk about this, Captain.
Of course.
And what's on the table from the Federation's end? Or did they send you with an empty hat?
The Federation has so much to offer that it could not possibly fit in one hat. So that is why they send someone like me in order to determine what are the needs that we could assist with. From an initial standpoint, of course, we could provide short, medium, or long-term security obligations. and patrol either stationed in system or as part of a larger, broader incorporation into the Aslan patrol route. Resources not normally available can be made available to those who are assisting in the refugee relocation efforts. I'm sure the Corps of Engineers would be willing to build a brand new city on a less densely on the land mass if you truly wanted to maintain a separation between the refugees and your colonists. Or, as I said, you could utilize their innate talents and resources and integrate them into your local economy and continue to expand upon your extremely desirable export industries.
At this point, I'm going to ask you to make a roll. We are in a diplomatic extended challenge. This is going to be a particularly tough one. She has an axe to grind with the Federation in regards to refugee resettlement. The out of game and in game, I'm sure you picked up on it,
Yep.
was that she legitimately feels they wouldn't do for us, but now they're going to do for them, and they used to be their enemies. We were their own people. This is a bit of an uphill climb in this case.
Essentially, I'm going to use the inside information trait we put together, and essentially, I'm framing it as like she has the opportunity as governor to show up those Federation fools, show them how it's done. Right.
Absolutely. So that would definitely reduce the difficulty of the challenge,
Yeah.
which was going to be a 5. So you've got that down to a 4 because of the trait. Your resistance on this is a 3 because the resistance is reflective of the fact that you not only have to sell her, but then she has to sell her people who may have all kinds of different opinions and needs, wants, desires, and prejudices. Hers is less of a prejudice and it's more of a, I wouldn't say narcissistic. That's not the right phrase, but there are people in this world who, just because it went badly for them, they're not willing to let it go well for others. That's her starting position. That's where we begin. Like I said, difficulty is now 4 because of your trait. Our resistance is 3. And how would you like to approach the roll?
I'm going to start with my using my Medal of Distinction for diplomacy, which I can't remember because I know we did that in 1E, and I think the transition over was due to.
What was the original?
I had it down as the Medal of Distinction, but I don't see that one anymore.
I think that was one I made up before we actually had the rules.
So the Star Cross is the medal awarded for Starfleet personnel for distinguished actions, which is a cost 3 award, and essentially before attempting a task that uses one of their focuses, you can expand the critical threat range, double the department rating for that role once per mission.
I'm fine with that. We can make that. We can make that adjustment, and then in the future just write it up as the Star Cross. And
Yeah, Star Cross for distinction for diplomacy. So I'm going to use that first. On one of those momentum I spent to create one of the traits, could I have
yep,
used could I use my Trill species bonus momentum instead and have still one for this roll?
it would have gone away with the transition of the scene also.
Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, then I'm gonna have to spend a threat to get a third die.
There we go. That's what I'm
Hmm.
talking about. Feed the
And,
beast.
and
Feed the
then,
beast.
yep. And then we'll go from here. I'm gonna do a presence command roll with the diplomacy focus.
Okay. Lieutenant Dori will help you. And in fact, her statement is she'll just say, Sierra, this isn't about us, it's about them. we've got to do better than was done before.
Along that same lines, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, let's see what I got here. 9, 10, and a 12. So that is 5 successes with my expanded critical range of a 10.
Okay. And Lieutenant Dory will roll her die. She is rolling Presence Command herself. So her target is 10. She did not succeed, so she rolled a 13.
All right.
So you have 5. You needed 4, so that gives you 1 momentum. And how much work do you do? With a resistance of 3.
Gee God. All my normal work is command of 5, so it'd be reduced down to 2.
Would you like to expend any momentum? Or actually, it takes 2, doesn't it, to improve that and to remove the resistance, correct?
Yeah, there's no command base 1-to-1 distance
Booster.
talent.
Yeah.
So I think I'm kind of stuck it there. It's going to
Okay.
be a long negotiation, Lee.
It is. And so
May I ask what the track is?
the track is 12.
Okay.
Nasira says you make some good points, Captain, but we'll have to talk about this further. Why don't we meet again tomorrow?
Of
And
course.
she says, she looks at her cousin and she says, my guess is you weren't coming here to see me. There's probably something very cool and sciencey that you want to take a look at. It's early in the day. Why don't you and your captain see what there is to be seen? And she says, trust me, Captain, there are no guards. You are free to roam about the world.
Oh, I would never dream of insulting your hospitality by making any sort of assumption as that. But I will see you for lunch tomorrow. I know you're quite busy, I'm sure. I don't want to disturb your morning routine.
I have some of our councilmen and representatives from the various settlements that'll be here in the morning. We have some other business. Why don't we meet at 10 and we'll reconvene and you can post your case in front of the group.
I would be more than happy to.
Excellent.